One of my best farms looked like this. When I looked at it, I said, hey, we got to have it. It's our best farm. I've shot like every 200, almost every one but one off of that one farm. And this looks just like it.
So we're here on a new project farm today up in Iowa. Toby found these farms, came up here and looked at them. So we're gonna take a look at this one. One of the exciting things about this, it used to be a cattle farm, so there's a series of fences throughout the farm, I've been told. And we're gonna kind of utilize those and manipulate them and force those deer, build some killer hunting spots. And
yeah, you can do a lot from an aerial, looking at it and say, okay, this is where I think this should be. This is where I think we could put cut a hole in this fence, and instead of driving through that, make your pinch points if there's not natural ones. But it's nothing like getting out on it and looking at it.
This is such a blank canvas, and there's so many small coves and hidden areas that we can enhance. And so we're super excited. I'm excited to show these guys this farm because it's going to be a good one.
This farm we're standing on now, we've actually got 3 of them, all within a couple miles of each other.
Yep.
And so, like, for me, it'd be perfect to have this and get a couple buddies and buy all 3 of them and put like a little shack on one place. But it's so nice to have different places to draw from. I mean, I can't really, over the years, people always maybe assume that we have one farm. Oh, if I could be on your farm, it's like, if it was just one, I'd shoot 1 deer every 5 years. I mean, we've got like a dozen farms, and you gotta, you have to have some different places spread out that that you have a better chance of getting a big one, at least a better chance of pulling a big one into some of those places. So, these farms that we have right here is like a perfect opportunity for somebody to do that, or just going with their buddies or something. In this area right here, it's in a very good neighborhood. I'm very familiar with this area. We've had hunted on a piece that's can't be within, 3-4 miles from here maybe. And there's probably been like 7 or 8 200-inch deer shot off. It's a very good neighborhood right here. We won't say it's just south central Iowa, but these farms will be working on these and putting a big strategy together. That's what we're doing today. Getting a look at it, where should we get food plots in, ponds, whatever we need to do. And these things will be totally transformed by the time August rolls around. All of the knowledge that we've accumulated over the last 30 years, is gonna be put into it, and all that will be done before we ever hand it off to you. So that's one nice thing about it. It's not just buying a farm and selling it. We're buying it, totally changing that farm, converting it over to what we think, with all the knowledge that we've had, okay, this is the best that we can make this farm, and then we hand it off to somebody and move on to the next project.
And that all has value. A finished, developed farm adds value, which makes your investment a better investment. That value hangs on all the way down the road. Say you were to buy this farm and you buy it done and developed by us. Say in 5 years you grow out of it and you want to buy another farm. That plan and the strategy and that stamp is going to stay with this piece of ground.
What are we gonna do for food plots? Like where? I mean, if it were my place, like I would say all of this is gonna be food, all this open stuff.
There's not a lot of food on the outskirts of this place. There isn't even any crop till you get 2 farms this way from what I've seen driving around the neighborhood. So if you load this with food and we're enhancing the cover, I mean, this is gonna be the mecca. Like, this is gonna be the core piece of the whole area.
I always say, like, we have a dozen farms. Everyone's like, I said before, people think, oh, I wish I could hunt your farm. It's like, well, no one farmer is gonna be that good.
Yeah.
You have to have little ones, but you don't, like right here, you don't need a 3,000 acre piece. You have a 160 acre piece with all the food. You're gonna have every deer from 5,000 acres around in here. You didn't have to buy 5,000 acres. You had to buy the 160 or the 200 if you have the right food and stuff. You're gonna have most of the deer from there anyway.
that was something interesting you said when we walked in, because I've always been a firm believer that you're better off, you would be better off, with 1080s and 1-800 in most situations, because you hedge, a bad neighbor, you hedge a disease coming through, and then you up probability of having that. The hard part's having that giant to hunt. So you up your probability so much when you're spreading it across multiple herds. And it's interesting hearing you say that, because you do have a lot of big tracks and stuff, but you have multiple big tracks, which is a part of it.
Been putting them together for 30 years,
And so when you said that when we came in here, you're better off with a lot of small tracks. I agree with that, and this is kind of like a little micro version of that. Because there are 3 of them that are kind of staggered enough to where they're going to be different herds, but they're also close enough that you could buzz them with a ranger to hunt.
Right. But let me is that, clarify on that a little bit. I mean, it's nice having a big piece because you hold them in the middle. You kind of take out the neighbor equation on it. But if you're just looking on a pure deer sense, coming up with that 200, something that has those kind of genetics is really 1 in a million as it is. So if you have, let's say an 80 here, a 160 there, a 200 here, and you have all these places all over, like I was saying earlier, you put a bunch of food on there, you basically have all the deer from 2,000 acres coming in there and here and here. So you're just grabbing so many more samples to find that 1 in a million, 200.
Every corner you come around, it's like, oh, we could do this, oh, we could do that,
I know.
we could do this. So now that you've seen in what good shape this fence is, that is such a funneling factor to, that pinch right there is an awesome spot by itself. But imagine taking some timber out of here and leading every logging road to come up here and pinch and then busting a hole in the fence.
Right.
So now this is a great area right now because of this traffic, but then we're going to add this dynamic.
What do you think about maybe drilling beans this year all the way down these chutes and prepping them, and then whoever would buy it, the plan would be next year grassing?
Rather do some switch and blue stem and stuff along that one, and maybe the middle one, maybe just keep this one in food or something, have it like an alfalfa on this or something like that, but have that more bedding because that neighboring property is not too far over that fence to kind of keep a buffer from there. So
keep the food internal.
Keep stuff in here. I'd do all those in beans to bust those up, and I'd do corn on this big piece up here.
That fence is a major
tool,
part of the canvas that this farm has dealt.
A lot of our farms are really ditchy like this too, and these are always our best ones that have these big points. They always like to bed right where they start to steepen off on the edge, and look, we're only 300 yards from where we're gonna have all the food up on the top up there. That whole thing will be food, so all these ridges all run right up to the top. If you came in here to do some more timber work, we could take 1 or 2 of these ridges and make it like a road up to the top where deer would pop on those roads and walk up and to funnel them up into there. And you keep it down on these bottoms like this and the points where they always like to bed, lay some tree tops down and get it where they bed here.
Man, this is awesome.
Yeah. I know, this timber's way better than I thought it was gonna be.
Nice to see some big rubs. I mean, I can look up in there and I can see a bunch of other big rubs on the cedars. On top of this being a cedar thicket, it's a south-facing cedar thicket. Awesome.
Perfect little satellite piece.
For sure, this looks great. My best farm's a place that had cattle on them, and you take it out because it always grows up in hedge and cedars and locusts. And it grows up like this. You can leave this stuff up in there, let it grow up, and just put a food plot back on these points and keep a screening up there.
One of my favorite things about Iowa is like just the lack of crop. Over where we are in Illinois, every field is crop. So here it's like, man, when you plant food.
Yeah, this area is weird because it's mostly all cattle because it's hilly, but then you get food in some places like that and it's like, holy cow. I mean, what you're gonna draw into a small place like this, even an 80 acre, you're gonna have some big deer around here.
Yeah, and it's like, they can get hunting pressure, but all that ground it's just tougher to hunt. So your odds of growing old deer, I mean, they don't have food, they just don't have all the goods.
There's gonna be good deer here because really when you come to Iowa, there's always a good age structure because there's just not that many hunters.
The structure in here, the terrain, all south facing, thicken it up. Even without thickening it, there's no doubt, no pressure, giant will live in this block of woods.
Yep.
No doubt.
Once you got all the food and stuff, they'll likely be one here right away, but you'll continue to grow them. This one is obviously a lot more finished than the other ones. There's not a lot you have to do here. You can see some of the positioning of the blinds and the types of blinds and the fields and stuff have to be redone. But, it's not like you got to come in here and and does out fields and everything. Somebody's already thought this through pretty well and took advantage of the open spaces that there were already.
This is the third farm we visited today. Shows you what those are gonna look like deer sign wise, you know, once the food's there. This place has so much food, and we've been told that the people that had it this year, you know, they might have been from out of state or something and didn't have tags because they apparently didn't hunt it, and it doesn't look like it because none of the corn's mowed or anything, but the deer sign here is just...
Yeah, it's stupid. It looks like one of my farms out, you know, in my place. So this is, you know, it's totally different from the first two we looked at. We're just totally raw, you know, that just an open pallet, just do whatever we want to. Like this one, you know, there's already so many deer piled in here, and it'll only take this summer around those other ones too. But our next step on all of these is just get feeders in here, even though this has, you know, big cornfields. We have to mow this down because even though it doesn't seem like there's any corn in there, right up at the ends, you know, there's always some corn where the deer can't get to. So you mow this, you'd be surprised how much is out there. And they'll wipe this out in no time, you know, once you have it on the ground. But we want to have feeders on all these, especially those other two that don't have any food on them. And right now is the one time that you can start grabbing neighboring deer and bring them to your place. You know, once it starts greening up, they already have their home ranges, okay, they just stay there. But you have, you know, a feeder out, just put one out right now where you can feed in Iowa. A lot of states you can't, but that's a big advantage to us. And it's not to kill deer over. For me, it's more just to take you know, surveys just to get a good you know, picture of how many deer you have, and it's just basically for surveillance of them and see what you've got. But we put a feeder on those other places right now, you start piling those deer from all around. You know, they start smelling that and they start coming in. But we've always done that. It's like the minute the hunting season's over, people are thinking, oh, ice fishing or doing something else, and they're off. They're not even thinking deer. That's the time we're thinking deer, especially. Is okay, this is the one time that I can recruit neighbors' deer over here. So we get, if it's not food plots, if we're out, we get feeders out. You start bringing all these deer in that you've never seen before, and then you find their sheds, and if you can hold them there until green up, you've got them. It's not that there's more deer here necessarily, it's that, you know, those other pieces, they could be, I'm sure there's just as many deer in the area. Just like when you have food late like this, you draw everything in. So we want to start drawing them in on those right now. So this hunting season is going to be, you know, just as good as this one, because you're gonna draw those deer in there right now.
And we know from last year when we were here and saw trail cams, there was big deer here last year, and then this year, the realtor that we bought it off of actually found.
That one shed is like a 80 something inside, you know, and the other one with the big forks on, it's got the genetics already. It already has the age structure.
The one thing that this one has that the other two to have, it's already got established grass. And this takes a little while for this
3 years
to get
stand
this.
like this.
And it has it in several places, so you know, you're way ahead of the game on thermal covering grass on here. This is a huge advantage to have that already.
As always, if you're interested, we can pre-qualify you, show you these places, and maybe get involved on the front end to tailor these things exactly to your needs. And that might look like you might be out of state and only planning on late muzzleloader hunting. And if that was the plan, you know, we might be able to set things up a little bit differently.
Right, so, change it up a little bit for somebody that's you know, strictly a bow hunter.
But otherwise, you know, we'll be documenting the process, and looking forward to having Lee on board. And,
Yeah, looking forward to getting in here and doing some work on these things.